Hello and welcome to this release overview for the Cisco Secure Firewall release 10.0.0. In this session, I'm going to cover some of the key release highlights, and for more technical details associated with this release, please keep an eye on our YouTube channel as well as the Secure Firewall Essentials portal on secure.cisco.com. And of course, before upgrading, be sure to review the 10.0.0 release notes. My name is John Payne and I'm on the technical marketing team in Cisco's Security Business Unit. Let's get into it. So I've broken the release down into several categories, ranging from supported platforms and hardware, and into some of the more specific feature areas around Secure Firewall. Where I always like to start is showing support for devices as well as upgrade paths. So moving forward, I wanted to cover how we are doing the release numbering, starting with the 10.0.0 release. Yes, the previous release numbering was the 7.x train of releases, but we will be using this approach to further simplify and be consistent with support and certification. Working through the different coloring in blue, or the first digit, that represents the major version or series of releases. In our case, 10.0.0. So again, the initial release with this 10.0.0, and the final release in the series being 10.5.0, which would deliver the final new features and the release submitted for government certification. Now, when we move into the maintenance release, think of this as just your standard MR release, providing bug fixes and vulnerability protection on top of that major release. Alright, moving on to platform support, more of a reference slide, but we will see some new entries to the firewall portfolio at the low and high end, and in addition, refreshing some of the hardware-based FMCs. Not really much to call out here other than the continued virtual support in both public and private clouds, as well as support for the Firepower 4100 and 9300 models in 10.0.0. Keep in mind, 4100 support for this release will be limited to the 4112, 4115, 4125, and 4145. And on a 9300, we will be limited to the SM40, 48, and 56. Why this matters, you will see in just a moment. Alright, so when getting to 10.0.0, you will need to be on a minimum version of 7.3 or higher, with the caveat of some hardware models coming later to the portfolio, so things like the 1200 series or the 4200 series. Now, on the previous table, I mentioned only certain models of the 4100 and 9300 series, and that is because certain submodels of those families have been around for some time and can only run up to software release 7.2. So hence the lack of support for some 4100 and 9300 hardware for release 10.0.0. Now, and just a quick reminder while on this topic, so always upgrade FXOS first before upgrading your firewall threat defense for the 4100 and 9300 series. For the remainder of the hardware models, the install and upgrade files are the same file, only requiring one download and one upgrade. Alright, so on the hardware coming in this release, at first glance here you will see the new Secure Firewall 220 up close and personal, but more details on this coming up. So this is more or less the overall firewall portfolio, with some of the newer hardware depicted fitting into the branch all the way up top to the data center and in the cloud also. So on the 200 series, there will be a single model, up to 1.5 gigabits per second of firewall and IPS performance, and 1 gigabits per second of VPN throughput. When decrypting, you'll see about 750 megabits per second throughput on this device. And then moving on, and not new to 10.0.0, but you will see the 1200, 3100, and 4200 there with their varying performance factors. So the new entry at the high end of the portfolio is the 6100 series, which includes two models and up to 400 gigabits per second in firewall IPS performance and similar VPN performance as well, while over 100 gigabits per second in decryption performance. Alright, so a little bit more on the 220. So of course this has to run at a minimum of the 10.0.0 release with, if you want to run ASA, then you would install at least ASA 9.24. So what this is really geared towards is a branch firewall. It's a smaller end box. Our current offering at this form factor of the 1010, we can see up to about a 2x faster performance factor. And this is kind of a more comprehensive approach for faster AI-powered on-box threat inspection capabilities built directly into the device. So with this device too, we had to rethink a couple things. When it came to management, we rethought some elements in the FMC with the aim of ease of use and simplification of the management. We also reduced the boot time by around 50% by optimizing the database, and some of the file structures got a refresh. It is based on the ARM SoC design. Like I said, the goal of this branch firewall, whether that is to actually be at the branch or if you're terminating some of your SD-WAN deployments. And again, in terms of performance, about 1.5 gigabits per second on the next-gen firewall traffic profile, VPN about 1 gigabit per second, and then decryption is about 500 to 750 megabits per second for TLS 1.2 and 1.3. Alright, so shifting up to the 6100 series, I think some background on this device is important. As networks and security requirements keep increasing and evolving, our hardware also needs to keep up with that curve. So the predecessor for the 6100 is the Firepower 9300, you could say, and which, quite frankly, with a fully loaded chassis of SM56 modules, the backplane was already maxed out. So introducing a new module wasn't entirely a viable option for us. So jumping ahead, we borrowed architecture and thought from the 3100 and 4200 series and brought this into a massively scaled out version in the 6100 series. So on board, you get 12 SFP56 ports, 4 QSFP56 ports, which are up to 200 gigabits per second, and then 2 network module slots, which will be compatible with the existing 3100 and 4200 network modules. In terms of performance, up to 400 gigabits per second in next-gen firewall. For a TLS 1.2, 1.3 mix, you can expect to see around 140 gigabits per second, and then for IPsec traffic, around 350 gigabits per second. So zero-touch provisioning is a feature geared towards the low to mid-end of the portfolio, but has really changed over the releases, with the goal to simplify the onboarding of firewalls with only have to input a serial number. Now it has been completely optimized to reduce onboarding time and remove the dependency of the local device manager to facilitate the onboarding of the device to Security Cloud Control or on-prem FMC. So on threat and malware enhancements, 4 things to call out here. Eve has gained some new monitoring capabilities and configuration has been streamlined for both Eve and the decryption policy. For AppID, a new feature is introduced for default port selection, and then SnortML has also received some updates. First, let's look at the background of why these changes were necessary. Historically, while Eve has been great at enhancing client application visibility and detecting malware, the configurations often lack clarity for our end users. We also recognize that achieving full protection often requires decryption, and the biggest hurdle there has been ease of use. Furthermore, many customers struggle to know which default ports are associated with specific apps, leading to potential configuration headaches. And finally, for our security analysts, the constant need to write new snort rules for every newly discovered vulnerability is incredibly time-consuming. So these were the core problems we set out to solve for this release. So moving on to what's new, we've made several critical updates, so Eve now operates in just 2 streamline modes, Monitor and Protect, and the block threshold configuration has been simplified to just 2 levels, High and Very High. This means users can now focus on the intent of their decryption policy, rather than getting bogged down in the complex process of generating it. Another important change is that when adding applications to access control rules, default ports will now be enforced automatically. And for advanced threat detection, SnortML now supports detecting sophisticated attacks like HTTP command injection and cross-site scripting. These innovations bring substantial benefits to our users. You'll experience simplified management and configuration, as Eve configuration is now streamlined and always used for application detection. This leads to easier and more effective security measures, allowing you to concentrate on the strategic intent of your decryption policy. We've also worked to reduce misconfigurations by removing the need for customers to know specific default ports for many applications. Ultimately, these changes result in enhanced and automated threat detection, providing improved protections against new and emerging vulnerabilities. Finally, let's touch on requirements for these new capabilities. To leverage these features, simply you'll need an FMC on 10.0.0 and ensure you're running that FMC and your managed devices with Snort 3. So with Eve, like I mentioned, there is a new UI dashboard and some new widgets to get an at-a-glance view of what Eve is able to see and provide fidelity on. In terms of configuration, this has moved out of the advanced settings of the access control policy to its dedicated page. With the new configuration pane, you get 2 modes to deploy Eve in, Monitor and Protect. Simply in Monitor mode, Eve is identifying applications, while in Protect mode, apps are identified but also blocked if deemed malicious and have a high or very high threat score associated. The previous 5 option slider is now collapsed into 2 options, High and Very High, which significantly reduces the configuration and allowing the engine to focus on providing that fidelity to you. Now with the decryption policy, you as the admin focus on what the policy should do, and we take care of how that policy gets generated and then implemented. with the goal really to simplify the approach when it comes to configuring decryption on Cisco firewalls. So now everything is in one view, minimizing the need to iterate through a wizard or having to leave the page. You get a logical grouping approach for each section, inbound, outbound, etc., and more powerful options like intelligent decryption bypass or selective decryption is still available in this view. Now, once you check the checkboxes or throw the sliders or input my security zones, we click Save, and no longer do we get a rule view, but a simplified approach on what the policy should do. Also to note, quick decryption in previous releases was deemed experimental, so in this release we removed the tag for this. With AppID providing the ability to detect and control access to resources based on the application type, while this is incredibly powerful, we've understood that it can be challenging to know the exact default ports for every application, especially for things like gaming applications, for example, where the ports for services like Steam or Xbox Live aren't commonly known. So in this release, you no longer have to guess or look up those obscure port numbers. What's even better is that if you add multiple applications to a single rule, each application will only match against its specific default ports. For example, if you have SSH and HTTP in the same rule, SSH will correctly match on TCP 22 and HTTP will match only on TCP 80, ensuring precise and simplified application control without manual port specification. Alright, so a little bit on SnortML. So like I said, we introduced this back in 7.6, and simply put, what SnortML is an addition or inspector to Snort, but with a neural network-based exploit approach for Snort 3. So in its initial release in 7.6, it was introduced and provided those support for SQL injection type attacks. In the new release, it now supports HTTP command injection attacks, and in the future there's going to be more and more coverage as we iterate on the releases. But things like cross-site scripting attacks are now also supported with SnortML, and then of course with each release, under-the-hood enhancements have also been fine-tuned. Alright, pivoting slightly over to SD-WAN for a couple of features, we now support carrying security group tags over site-to-site tunnels, and have implemented ECMP and BFD for fault detection on the VTI interfaces. Historically, Cisco TrustSec has been our cornerstone for network security, utilizing role-based access control to identify users and devices beyond just their IP addresses, all managed centrally via ICE. This allowed for dynamic policy enforcement, but then regarding traffic flow, we've always been able to load balance traffic initiated from a spoke-to-hub connection. However, a limitation was that the hub-to-spoke communication could not be load balanced, which could impact performance and resilience in certain scenarios. What's new in the 10.0.0 release? First, we've added the ability for both dynamic VTIs and static VTIs to receive and propagate security group tags, or SGTs. This was a crucial step towards extending our security posture. Second, we've addressed the hub-to-spoke load balancing challenge. Hub load balancing via multiple paths to a given spoke is now fully supported through the addition of ECMP and BFD. These new features deliver substantial benefits. Firstly, you'll experience enhanced and extended security. By enabling SGT propagation across your SD-WAN fabric, you can achieve more granular and consistent security policies. This translates directly into better protection, more precise control over your network traffic, and significantly simplified security management experience. Secondly, we're delivering improved network performance and reliability. With the new hub load balancing capabilities, you'll benefit from optimized traffic distribution, leading to increased bandwidth utilization and better application performance. Crucially, this also means higher availability for your spoke sites, resulting in a more resilient and efficient network infrastructure overall. Finally, the requirements to implement these capabilities. To take advantage of these enhancements, you'll need to be running FMC version 10.0.0, and these features are specifically supported on FTD 10.0.0 only. Alright, so the need exists for carrying those encrypted SGTs across your SD-WAN fabric. So DVTIs and SVTIs can receive and propagate those SGTs across the tunnel. And then again, if needed, you can mix FTD and ASA devices in your deployment. So here's what the configuration will look like. Pretty simple. So under the device management page, there's an added checkbox when you go to create a VTI interface. And again, the goal of this is to enable your consistent and granular security policy for your microsegmentation across your distributed network environment. Now, with the ability to configure ECMP and BFD on the VTI interfaces, we can now provide session connectivity and application resiliences across multiple paths more efficiently. With ECMP, we have the ability to route packets to a destination via multiple equal cause paths, And then currently with dead peer detection, there is a minimum of 20 seconds to detect a down peer. This is where we now leverage bidirectional forwarding, or BFD, to detect faulty VTI links faster in a few milli or microseconds. Shifting gears to more of the FMC specifics added in this release, we're adding a few things starting with the direct integration with Splunk into FMC and some additional advanced logging capabilities. The on-premises FMC navigation received some customizable updates, as well as the upgrade wizard and the model migration to receive some other updates as well. First, let's look at the background that made these features necessary. Previously, while Syslog offered better performance for SIEM integration than eStreamer, its configuration was often complex and had fewer features. Many users also found the process of selecting a device for upgrade unintuitive and cumbersome. For smaller customers, the sheer number of pages in the FMC could be overwhelming. A key customer expectation was that when upgrading to newer hardware, their existing configurations should seamlessly transfer. Addressing these challenges, the What's New section highlights several significant enhancements in 10.0.0. We've introduced a new wizard that simplifies syslog integration for Splunk, now offering improved event options like packet data. Access control rules now feature a new configuration menu for advanced logging, providing new application-specific log types. The upgrade wizard has received a complete overhaul with a new layout and improved features. And then lastly, the FMC navigation has been simplified, aligning with our security cloud control initiatives. And we've added support for additional FMC and FTD model migrations. These new features translate into tangible benefits for our end users and customers. You'll experience a much better SIEM integration due to easier syslog configuration and enhanced event options. Upgrades are now significantly simplified, making firewall upgrades more intuitive and less cumbersome. We're also ensuring a consistent user experience, facilitating smoother transitions for customers moving from traditional on-prem deployments to a cloud-first model. And critically, you can expect seamless configurations during migration, meaning your current configurations will be maintained when refreshing to newer hardware. Finally, for all these features and benefits, the primary requirement is to simply be running FMC 10.0.0. Alright, simplifying the UI with the FMC. So the goal here was to simplify some of the pages or number of pages in the UI. I think for some customers, especially those smaller customers, the number of pages can be overwhelming to a certain degree. In the new release, we really plan to streamline those existing menus, so you as the user or the administrator can focus on your essential operations. You get streamlined default menus that are displayed in a single column on the left, so a similar theme with a kind of twist on it to align more with security cloud control. So again, some of the naming and nomenclature we've updated from security cloud control and brought them into the menus. And now you now have the ability to customize which items appear in those various menus. So from the UI, the Overview tab is now under Insights and Reports. Some of your analysis is under Events and Logs that you'll see in a kind of parent column, if you will, on the left. What you're seeing on screen there is how things are fully customizable. So we can click the slider icon there, and then you can move and remove different menu items to fit better into your deployment. There is a new troubleshooting menu. The system menu has moved away from the top menu navigation, which used to be the gear icon in the upper right. You'll find that under the Administration tab on the bottom left, a new Find in Menu button. And then on your on-screen assistant, of course, now your page level help, and again, these menus are all fully customizable. Alright, so moving on to how we are directly integrating Splunk into FMC. We built a wizard inside FMC that offers massive improvements in simplifying the old syslog configuration. Syslog event export options are also greatly improved, including intrusion packet data. With this direct integration, there is no need to employ eStreamer to have FMC establish communication with your Splunk instance. So here's what it looks like. Under the Integrations tab, there is a dedicated Splunk page to where you would build these profiles. When you go through the configuration, you would see a list of profiles in the middle, and then when configuring, we can pick our server and choose our event types. So there's 5 steps you have to go through to build your profile. You can add, remove, and choose FTD or FMCs. You select your devices that you want to pull from, so on and so forth. And then you get a summary to where you could go back and edit some of the configurations. And then once we're finished, another mention about these profiles is that they are additive in that any additional profiles you build will also be applied to the devices you specify in the configuration. New also is some more granularity when it comes to logging. what we are able to do is leverage Snort to generate logs with a more granular data for DNS, FTP, and HTTP. Also support for end of connection data, intrusion event data, and anomalies. The goal here really is to provide our SIEM systems from having access to data collected from all passing traffic, and additional fidelity is needed for big data analysis. This provides insights into security threats and operational performance, enabling advanced analytics to proactively detect and mitigate risks, optimize network configurations, and enhance overall security posture. So when we talk in terms of device model migration, this was a feature that we brought in a few releases ago and have iterated over time. Before I cover some of the model-specific details, this feature gives you the ability to migrate different things like interface configurations or routing configurations, things like DHCP, VRFs, and objects, directly from one model to the next. With 10.0.0, we're adding that ability with some additional models. You get the ability to migrate device-specific configurations anywhere from the 1010 to the 9300 to the 1200 to the 4200. To clarify, we don't allow migrating, say, a smaller device to a higher device, where there may be specific features that are specific to, say, a 4200. So with 10.0.0, for the 4100 support, we've added the 4112 through 4145. With the 9300 SM support, the SM40 through SM56 are added and being able to migrate from the device model wizard or model migration wizard. In terms of a destination device, the Firewall 1200 series or 4200 series is a new destination or target device if you're migrating off of either the 1000 series through the 9300 series. If you are employing some of the previous 4100 series firewalls, so things like the 4110, 20, 40, and 50, or some of the older modules for the 9300, so the SM24, 36, or 44, the last supported release for those devices is 7.2, and 10.0.0 doesn't support managing a device on that release. So if you're migrating from one of those devices, you'll have to employ FMC 7.6.1. Under the identity realm, a couple things to cover. New is a feature called Dynamic Firewall, where we're able to associate Cisco Identity Intelligence with identity from ICE. On the topic of ICE, we've added the ability to associate multiple ICE clusters with FMC, as well as the identity traceability tool. First, let's touch on the background that drove these changes. Our customers consistently need better visibility into users and devices to enforce policies effectively. While we currently achieve this through integration with ICE or Cisco Identity Intelligence, large network deployments often involve multiple ICE clusters, which FMC hasn't been able to fully leverage until now. Furthermore, debugging and analyzing user sessions across complex multi-component environments can be challenging, as understanding a user's path is crucial. This brings us to what's new in 10.0.0. We're introducing a dynamic firewall wizard to simplify associating identity sources with identity intelligence. A major update is the ability to leverage multiple ICE clusters in policy, so whether they are on-premise or pxGrid cloud, to address a key scalability limitation. Additionally, we're providing a new CLI-based identity traceability tool that automatically retrieves session fidelity and compiles it into a structured, easy-to-read table. For the benefits, you'll see enhanced identity-based policy enforcement, allowing for more granular control based on user and device identity. We're delivering improved scalability, enabling ICE deployments to leverage those multiple ICE clusters more efficiently. And finally, debugging and analysis will be significantly simplified, making it much easier to understand user session traversal across your network components. To take advantage of these features, there are a few requirements. You'll need FMC and FTD 10.0.0. The identity traceability tool specifically requires FMC managed FTDs. For FTD support for multi-ICE and dynamic firewall, you'll need FTD version 7.3 or higher for Active Directory realms and 7.4 or higher for Azure AD. The feature itself is this new wizard in the FMC under your Dynamic Attributes connector page. This capability allows you to integrate with ICE for, say, device attributes, and then with CII or Cisco Identity Intelligence for your user intelligence. What CII does is collect user information from your different identity sources. So say whether that be Duo or something like Entra ID that we also support with this feature. It can then classify user patterns into 5 trust levels. So anywhere from trusted to untrusted, Then where we leverage this is in the FMC to get the untrusted and questionable levels from CII and apply it to logins received from ICE or PXGrid Cloud. While on the topic of ICE, we are furthering the capability by giving you the ability to have FMC receive feeds from multiple ICE clusters. Really, the goal here was due to scale reasons. Larger deployments may not house all their configurations in a single ICE instance. Now you can get user sessions and SXP mappings from multiple ICE clusters behind a PXGrid Cloud application instance, giving you that flexibility to see security groups and endpoint profiles directly in your access control policy. Alright, the last section I want to cover is the enhancements that we are bringing into the public and private cloud form factors. The ASAV receives some added support in GCP as well as OCI and KVM. For FTDV, we have a new form factor for ESXi and KVM. First, let's set the background. We've seen a considerable uptick in Google Cloud Platform, or GCP, adoption, which has highlighted a critical need for dynamic scaling support for both FTDV and ASAV. While Cisco offers robust ARM-based hardware appliances, there's been a gap in supporting virtual form factors on the ARM architecture. Additionally, our FTDV has been constrained to a maximum of 16 virtual CPUs, and our customers require solutions that can handle much higher resource allocations for their demanding environments. So what's new in this release? We're directly addressing these challenges. For GCP, we're introducing clustering with the autoscale, specifically for ASAV, allowing for that dynamic and efficient scaling. For Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI, we're bringing ARM-based ASAV and FTD instance support, expanding our reach into that ecosystem. And for our VMware and KVM users, we're launching an FTDV-U with an unlimited new tier license offering greater flexibility. These new features deliver substantial benefits. Primarily, you'll see increased scalability and performance, so this means your security infrastructure can adapt automatically to changing demands, ensuring improved performance even for your most demanding workloads. Furthermore, we're providing expanded deployment options, allowing you to deploy virtual firewalls with greater flexibility and at a reduced cost, especially within OCI environments. Finally, let's cover the requirements to leverage these new capabilities. You'll need FMC 10.0.0 and FTD 10.0.0. For ASAV in GCP clustering and autoscale, ASA 9.24.1 is required. If you're looking to utilize device support for ARM-based deployments in OCI, you'll need FTD 10.0.0 only for those instances, and ASA 9.24.1. Alright, so real quick, like I said, for Google Cloud, the ASAV receives an update for clustering with autoscale in those GCP environments. In addition, the FTDV running in GCP also received the dynamic scaling enhancement. Alright, so previously our ASAV and FTDV instances on OCI were exclusive to the x86 architecture. Now we're introducing ARM-based ASAV and FTDV instance support on OCI. So this means you can deploy these devices on ARM architecture, leveraging new instance types like the VM standard A1 and A2 Flex. You'll also have the flexible configuration options, so from 4 up to 16 Oracle CPUs for your ASAV and FTDV. Just note the bring your own license model is supported for these. And then previously our FTDV was constrained to a maximum of 16 virtual CPU cores, which some of our customers found limiting for their most demanding or high throughput workloads. To directly address this, we introduced a new form factor with an unlimited tier license. This new form factor allows for significantly higher resource allocations, offering higher deployment options. This means you can now deploy virtual firewall threat defense instances that scale to meet your more intensive performance requirements across both the VMware and KVM environments. It's all about providing the power and flexibility you need for today's complex network demands. That brings us to the end of this release overview. Be sure to check out the release notes and the rest of the videos being posted to this channel. Thanks, and catch you in the next one.